Carlos was so young when the accident happened, and no one could have seen it coming or even guessed in 1,000 years that this would be his fate. He was only 4 years old, and the unexpected violently cut his life short, ripping away his future. He was a happy and energetic child, loved by all who knew him. Funny, cheerful, and incredibly intelligent for his age, his bright smile never failed to light up the room. He was a constant source of joy to those around him. Words alone could not describe the love young Carlos Alejandro Flores had for his family, and they for him. What happened to Carlos that day? Was his death an unfortunate accident, or the result of willful negligence? And, most importantly, could it have been avoided? This is the tragic tale of little Carlos Alejandro Flores, who lost his life in the Great American Wave Pool accident. Imagine playing peacefully in a pool one minute and then getting your lungs filled with water the next. You're trying to scream for help, but the waves keep pulling you under, forcing you to keep swallowing the one thing that will soon kill you. Spending your last few seconds knowing help is only a few feet away and that you would be safe if only somebody, anybody, would turn around. Drowning is a long, quiet, and painful way to go, and no one willfully gets into a swimming pool expecting that they will be no more in just moments. However, this happened to 4-year-old Carlos Alejandro Flores when he got into the Great Barrier Reef Wave Pool at Great America Amusement Park, California, and never got out alive. The 12th of July 2007 was just another hot summer day in Santa Clara, California. July, in particular, experienced insane temperatures in the area. Some days could get as hot as 80 or as low as 59 degrees Fahrenheit, which was still uncomfortable. But of course, the best way to counter a day in the sun is to spend the time lounging in a pool. Yolanda Flores, the mother of 3, had planned to take her 2 youngest children, Jasmine, 8, and Carlos, 4, to Great America Amusement Park that afternoon. The park had recently opened a new attraction, the Great Barrier Reef Wave Pool, in May, and everyone in the family couldn't wait to check it out. They had been hoping to go for some time, but nothing had worked out until now. Luckily, summer meant school was out, and having the day off from school and a hot day to enjoy the pool was a real blessing, or so they thought. But unfortunately, maybe they should have just stayed home. With everyone eager to go and tired of the murky, hot sun, the idea of going to the park and swimming appealed to the whole family, so they packed their swimsuits and towels and set out, unaware that tragedy was somewhere lurking around, patiently waiting to strike. The Great Barrier Reef Wave Pool was built in an area of the park formerly known as Boomerang Bay. It was designed to replicate the feeling of surfing without the hassle of getting sand in your bathing suit. As expected, the attraction's debut was a huge success, with both first-time visitors and long-time park-goers coming back for more. Swimming in the ocean and being gently rocked back and forth by the waves was a great way to cool off, and the excitement of being carried away by larger waves was too good to pass up. At that time, Great America was already an established park, and since its opening in 1976, the park had seen a steady stream of visitors. Despite the deaths that had occurred in it in the years prior, including the most recent at the time, the untimely demise of a 12-year-old boy who fell off a tower ride to his death in 1999, the park still did not see any considerable drop in patronage. Those events were, after all, merely a quote-unquote coincidence. No one could have predicted that they would actually affect them, but even still, the Flores family wasn't doing something as nerve-wracking as riding a roller coaster or a slingshot. They just wanted to relax by the pool for the day. It was guaranteed to work out fine, or so they thought. On the afternoon of that fateful day, the Flores family set up shop beside the wave pool. They had secured a good beach chair poolside, despite the crowd in the area, and were more than ready to get into the water. Yolanda waited poolside while her 2 children entered the water. She watched them from her spot on the chair and didn't see anything wrong with them playing in the water alone. The children played for about 2 hours, splashing water at each other and squealing when the waves came in. Carlos didn't know how to swim, but that wasn't an issue. The children were playing in a shallow area of the pool, and there had been no mishaps so far. Other families were at the Great Barrier Reef Pool that day. Of course, a hot day meant many people had the same idea as the Flores family. The pool was quite busy, with everyone doing their own thing. As far as anyone knew, the 2 children were just another in a sea of screaming kids and happy families. After splashing around in the water, the children grew tired and decided to come out for a snack. They scrambled out of the pool and hurried to where their mother was sitting. The children had their snacks and rested for a while. Playing around for 2 whole hours had taken a toll on them, and they weren't so eager to get back in the water. Well, Jasmine wasn't ready to swim again, but Carlos was. He'd been having so much fun in the pool that he hadn't wanted to come out. He'd taken the break out of necessity, and because he couldn't say no to snacks, and he was more than eager to jump back into the fun. Carlos got back into the pool again, only this time he moved from the shallow area he and his sister were playing in into a slightly deeper middle section of the pool. Again, Yolanda didn't worry about it. The water at that side of the pool was only about 2 feet deep, and young Carlos stood at 4 feet in height. Upon that, Carlos was playing, and there was no need to upset him by dragging him somewhere else. So she remained seated and kept an eye on him from a distance. Perhaps the thought of something terrible happening failed to cross her mind, or she had forgotten that the water got higher when the simulated waves rolled in. Whatever the reason, Yolanda's decision proved to be a fatal mistake. 1 second, Carlos was splashing happily in the water. The next, he was gone. Yolanda sat up a bit straighter and looked around the pool, but she couldn't find her son. He was right there, and suddenly, he wasn't. Panic swept through her like the waves of the pool she was sitting near. Where in the world was her baby? She stood up from her seat and asked Jasmine to go back into the pool to check the area where Carlos had been only moments before while she went to get a lifeguard on duty. At that time, she still hoped that her son was okay, that maybe he had just wandered into an area too crowded for him to be spotted immediately. Little did she know that while Carlos was waiting around, he'd bumped into another swimmer's flotation ring. That, coupled with the wave cycle, had pushed him underwater. He couldn't swim, and he had tried calling for help, but in the deeper water, that only meant that every scream was another mouthful of the same substance filling his lungs. Carlos drowned quickly, and while his family was looking for him, his lifeless body was at the bottom of the pool. Everyone was unaware of Carlos's whereabouts, and his mother still hoped her son was all right. However, Jasmine's blood-curdling scream turned her hopes to dust. The 8-year-old girl had found her brother floating in the water, and he wasn't breathing. On hearing the panicked little girl and seeing the distraught mother, lifeguards finally rushed in and pulled Carlos's body out of the water. The lifeguards tried to revive him, but no CPR could save him. He was already dead, and this was pronounced when his body reached the local hospital. In the minutes after the poor boy's death, Yolanda wept at her son's feet while the paramedics arrived, and on-duty lifeguards could do nothing but sit and cry. Carlos was left in the pool to play without immediate adult supervision, and that error on the part of his guardian and the park lifeguards trusted with his safety cost a bright young child his life. In the days that followed, the pool was closed for investigations, but it did not stay closed for long. Despite the incident that had only just occurred, the Great Barrier Reef Wave Pool did not receive any shortage of patrons and is still there to this day. However, during the investigations, it was concluded that the park should have done more for the safety of its patrons. Yolanda claimed that only 4 lifeguards were on the scene when her son drowned. However, it was proven that there were 6. The problem was that the 6 lifeguards weren't clear on which parts of the pool they were supposed to watch and did not have an efficient rotation schedule. In addition, an adult was not required to accompany children under a certain age or size. It also did not have a law requiring all children under a certain height to wear a flotation device. These safety procedures were standard, but the park skimped on them, and even though they are in place now, they will not bring back the lives lost. Carlos Flores was a bright and intelligent child whose life was cut short due to a lack of direct adult supervision. He will never achieve his goals, play with his siblings, or live a long, fruitful life because the people tasked with watching him didn't. Unfortunately, a life was lost due to adult negligence, and, as sad as it is to say, it could happen to anyone.